Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Adam and Andy here. You guys both have, really unique backgrounds in the business world, in the tech world, just various different roles that you've held. I think have been fascinating, and they've come into play in the AI space now, and that you guys are advising companies with their AI strategy, with how AI can best be used in the organization, and just building that out. I mean, we're at a very unique point where everybody's trying to figure out what to even do with AI. You hear all about it all the time, you see the software innovations, but figuring out what to do with it is kind of a whole other thing with the amount of amazing new companies and products and services there are. So I'm excited to have you guys here and to get into your journeys and what you're building.
Great to be here.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So just kind of like going back to just the foundation here and the idea, like, how did you guys kind of come up with this specific idea in general? What made you two, Andy and Adam, want to work together on this? And how did just the whole company Forum3 form?
Andy, why don't you take that one?
I'll take this one. So at Forum3, the name of the company is a recall to how Adam and I first met in 2001. And so the origins of the company really come from our 20 plus year friendship. And when I moved to Seattle from Boston, I was a member of an organization which at the time was called YEO, and today is called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. It's an organization that many of your audience members should be aware of if they're not already. EO is a great organization that entrepreneurs join when their businesses are have achieved $1 million in sales or greater. And so I moved from Boston to Seattle and joined Forum3 of YEO Seattle, and Adam was in that group. And our professional relationship started that, and that grew into a friendship. And really, the origins of Forum3, Adam and I have had illustrious careers and both done different things in the digital and technology space. And the origins of the company really rested in the fact that we wanted to do work together. We'd always talked about doing something together, and approximately 3 years ago, decided, we better do it now because life is short.
And Ben, I can jump in and kind of bridge that to AI, right? And kind of how do we end up being AI consultants and authors? Yeah. So first of all, it actually started 3 years ago when we started the company. Neither of us were thinking about generative AI or neural network based AI. We were thinking about AI, but we hadn't really paid a lot of attention to what people like DeepMind were doing at Google and the transformer model, concept. We weren't. We were more focused on like digital strategy in general, things like, loyalty and customer engagement, personalized marketing, omni-channel digital strategy. And because we both in our career have been sort of forward leaning when it comes to tech and attaching it to companies, at the time we started doing business together, we were more thinking about like metaverse and blockchain and like think about AI, frankly, in a non-neural network way. We were thinking about AI, but we weren't aware of ChatGPT. So we started out the company by being pretty forward leaning when it came to Web3 and some other things. When it came to enterprise loyalty, we were the team behind Starbucks Odyssey project, which was a Web3 loyalty combo that got a lot of kudos and was a lot of fun to work on with Starbucks. And we had clients like that. We had clients like Starbucks. We had clients like Anheuser-Busch InBev, helping them with some loyalty stuff. Clients like Crumble Cookies, helping them with some loyalty stuff. And that was sort of the beginning of our journey together, right? And then that took us to about December of 2022, which is now, I can't believe, over 2 years ago. And we had our holy shit moment. And I'm going to use that term because I'm going to steal Andy's. It's really Andy's term, but he kind of coined it for us. We're like, it was our holy shit moment. We were like, what is this technology? Like we were familiar with machine learning and deep machine learning and AI and algorithms. And we decided to get smart about this because we were sort of wowed by it. And honestly, just out of intellectual curiosity, the two of us, we were serendipitously at the time talking to Harvard Business Review about writing a book on digital loyalty, on digital strategy, and the things that we, digital transformation, the things that we had built our career on. And we asked our editor, Scott at HBR Press, do you mind if we write a book about the journey we're about to go on, which is to learn more about AI, particularly through the lens of enterprise leaders? Like, how does a business leader, and you hit the nail on the head, Ben, about this topic, how does a business leader go about thinking, getting their head around this? Is it underhyped? Is it overhyped? Do I use it every day? Do I incorporate it into my products? Like, help me. And so we decided to get smart, and we wrote a book over the ensuing year. We finished it about 6 months ago, and it comes out, believe it or not, in a couple more months from now. And the book's called AI First, and it's basically our journey to learn about how business leaders should be thinking about AI. And then that, you can imagine, Ben, that was a pretty natural transition for us to get into AI, applied AI consulting for brands, given the fact that we got kind of smart on the topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth mentioning just on the book. So the full title of the book is AI First, a playbook for future-proofing your business and brand. And the book is really two parts. And what we did was, ChatGPT came out. We both had the instinct that it was a significant invention. And we were like, we used our networks and we basically started interviewing thought leaders in the space. So we interviewed Sam Altman 2 years ago. We interviewed Reid Hoffman, Bill Gates, Mustafa Suleyman, and a handful of other folks, Jamie Teven from Microsoft, all leaders in people who were building the large language models. And we just, we sort of went in and we went to school by talking to those leaders. And then we stepped back at some point, as each month, we were trying to do an interview every month. Each month we would go and would reflect on these interviews. And then we were like, okay, how does this apply to businesses and brand building? And right at that time, applied AI was becoming a thing, and business leaders and CEOs were scratching their head going, I keep hearing about this AI thing, but like, what does it mean for our business? And so we then wrote the playbook about how to apply it. So that whole, we basically went to school for a year interviewing and writing, and it both the process of our doing the interviews and then reflecting on it, it had us ask the questions ourselves, and it's really positioned us as thought leaders in the space. Because I think both Adam and I feel like the gap of people that adapt a mindset of being AI first as a CEO, that those companies that do that and start the journey now will start to financially outperform those that don't. And we've talked to practitioners like Moderna, Matt Britton from Suzy.com, and others.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm a company and I want to apply AI today, how do you guys advise them on how to do that? I mean, obviously there's so many different companies, so many different categories, but what are some ways they can see real improvements from AI? I think a lot of people hear about it, they don't know how to apply it, and they don't even know how they can even benefit from AI.
Well, let me answer that question by actually explaining a little bit of our playbook, because it's funny. Part of our playbook is that most people ask that question just like you do. They want to jump right to, hey, give me the use cases. That's, by the way, totally natural and actually a great question. Like, give me some examples. The truth is that the number one use case of how they should be applying AI is they're not even thinking about, because they're misunderstanding and underestimating AI. The number one use case is using it every day to augment your decision making. So as a business leader, every day you're making decisions. You're making strategic decisions. You're making budget decisions. You're making decisions about what to tell the people that you lead to go do. You're evaluating information for insights. You're applying those insights into some kind of actionable decision. And so if I could tell you right now that you, Ben, or any of the business leaders could make better decisions faster, and I'm talking like, let's just put numbers on it, 50% better quality decisions, 50% faster, just for starters. And I'm probably underselling the capability. You'd be like, sign me up. And that's the biggest thing we tell business leaders is like, before we get to the bunch of the opportunities to show you use cases, and we'll talk about them right now with you, but like, I want to just pause you and say, step back. If you really understand the power of this technology, the first thing is, how are you harnessing it every day to be an augmentation, a co-intelligence tool that basically pervades everything that you do as a knowledge worker and as a leader? So that's number one. Number two, you need to infuse your organization with things like, the playbook is, get your organization AI literate, get them AI proficient. They don't need to be masters, but if they don't have their head around the thing I just said and what it's capable of, you're not going to make very good decisions about how to take advantage of the use cases. Because you could hire someone like Andy and I to come in, and we actually do this, and we do like an AI use case assessment. And we're like, oh, you should be, your consumer brand, like, are you using AI to basically massively upgrade and improve productivity and cost savings in your customer support area? Are you using the unstructured data that comes from using AI to do that, to get incredible consumer insights about where your product strategy should be, where your company's falling down, where you're succeeding? Are you doing the same thing? Like, if you're not a consumer company and you're a sales organization, are you using recorded transcripts of all of your sales and account management calls to mine insights and build alert systems for yourself? Are you, if you're a consumer brand company and you're doing marketing and CRM, are you using the data that you're getting from that to basically run it through Gen AI to get amazing personalized marketing? And then even going further, using the AI to create the actual content on a segmented, personalized basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, I think that the assessment piece you talked about, I think, is very important. Like, these companies, I think a lot of companies want to figure out where, and they've heard of a couple different tools and they just don't really know. And if you do an assessment, you can help them with that. I mean, is it really kind of across the board, Adam, that there's, that these companies can have 50% efficiency improvement? Like, it's that, like, those kind of numbers are really that possible and that widespread?
Yeah, and I'm sure Andy's chomping at the bit to jump in on this question, because the answer is yes, unequivocally yes. By the way, first of all, there's research that shows using old models like GPT-4 over a year ago, where they took 700, Harvard Business School, Wharton professor Ethan Mollick, and the Boston Consulting Group took 750 Boston Consulting Group consultants, put them into 2 randomized control groups, and gave them a series of statistically relevant, proper double-blind graded productivity and quality graded tasks to do that are like product launches, marketing launches, budget decisions, all the things you do as knowledge leaders and pay consultants to do. And it came out at 40% higher quality, 25% faster. But the truth is, that was using old models. The models have significantly, they're 10x better than they were. They're 10x better now than they were then. And so I have no doubt that if you peanut buttered under the use of this and we're an AI first company, you'd see at least 50%. By the way, in certain areas, just to bolster the point, I'm talking about knowledge work, which is the hardest thing to like quantify, right? About and qualify how much better it is if you're augmenting with AI. Take things like coding. Like, I'm sure you're aware, like, if you're a software programmer, for example, or you're looking at things like customer service augmentation, you're talking about much greater gains in quality and proficiency than 50% across the board. But I'm just saying, Andy and I are both confident that, yeah, it's possible. I mean, you're talking about taking many, many times, you're talking about taking something that might have taken you a week and doing it in 15 minutes and doing it better, right? And that's just talking about like a task, let alone insights and decision making that you can do if you really know proper workflow and understand what these tools are capable of. And sorry, just to stay on my soapbox for a second, that's what Andy was saying earlier. These models and these technologies are logarithmically taking off, right? The business world right now is still in a kind of a linear pace, and I don't blame them. I'm not trying to like, cast aspersions on anybody. Like, how could they? I mean, it's so hard to keep up with this stuff. It's moving so fast. And like, we could talk about reasoning models and we could get into the weeds of like incredible breakthroughs that are happening. And what happens when you've got this technology that's rapidly approaching AGI, and yet most people think it's like a slightly better Google or email writing tool, or they confuse it with quote unquote old fashioned AI, which is not old fashioned, but like machine learning that does predictive algorithms to help you with like Netflix recommendations or sales forecasting, which uses AI. But they think that's what this is. And this is this alien intelligence that's incredibly capable, that's basically free, that you can bring into your business.
Mhm. Andy, I mean, do you think that most companies can just benefit from like kind of off the shelf standard AI that they just are unaware of how to use, or even what's kind of out there, or do they really need these custom bespoke models built for them, or they need to take advantage of those of customization much more?
As a result of working on the book, AI First, and I told you it was a series of interviews. It then naturally led to we launched a podcast at the beginning of this year, and we've continued interviewing predominantly CEOs, but C-suite executives. And what I would say is like at the closing of the podcast, we say we believe that you can't overinvest in AI. So I think I'll speak for myself, but I think Adam would agree. This is, I was around and being an entrepreneur in the 90s when the web got introduced. We lived through the mobile introduction, the platform, social media, cloud. This new era that we're in, the AI era. I mean, there's a lot of news about it. There's a lot of hype about it. I think it's underhyped. I think it's as big, if not bigger than the internet. Many of your listeners don't have the perspective of what it was like when the internet was getting introduced. And so the answer to the question is yes. Just starting to use it oneself is usually where it starts. But it's the amount of how deep you can go. You just won't. I mean, Adam and I spend every day of every week trying to keep pace. I'm watching YouTube videos at night. My YouTube algorithm is filled with both prompt engineering as well as, it starts to touch on robotics and other areas. So like AI is a massive step forward, and I don't think you can overinvest in it. And so, that's why, in many ways, a lot of the organizations we're working with, it makes a ton of sense for them to work with someone who's spending all their time like ourselves to help them out, both make the digital transformation, but also really what it is, as our firm, Forum3, to just talk about what we do, we start with the business problem. So we don't start with the technology. We start with the business problem, and then we look at sort of the data that one can bring to bear with the AI models to change or unlock the business problem and solve for it in a new way. And so the AI becomes a tool that is subservient to the business opportunity or problem that an executive is trying to tackle.
Yeah, and Ben, I'm just going to add one quick thing, which I couldn't agree more with what Andy just said. Like, the way we do that is we teach businesses best practice workflow. It's not just like an academic exercise, right? Like, we do teach our clients, why are they, how are they misunderstanding this? How should they understand this technology? How should they be thinking about using it? And also, the governance I mentioned. But we teach them best practice workflow. And one of the things we teach them is to answer, you asked in your question, you mentioned the word, can you really use these off the shelf models versus customized models? And I wanted to make sure I touch on that for a second, because you absolutely do not need a custom model. Like, I mean, some people do, but it's very rare. Like, the idea that you're going to go create your own model, let alone like fine tune some model, that used to be the talk track on some level. Like, with the power of these models, if you know how to harness them and how to use state-of-the-art workflow, something Andy and I talk about is the concept of source engineering. Like, can you actually take the right content that you've got and feed it into these models, and you are effectively fine-tuning them on the fly to understand your business and understand the context of what you're doing so that they can be the equivalent of a custom model, even though you're not actually customizing the model. You're just taking advantage of really smart, proper workflow. And it's amazing to watch. Like it is, I mean, Andy and I we'll do it ourselves for our own company, for our clients. And we still are like, wow, can you believe that just produced that? And we live and breathe this every day.
I mean, you've talked to so many of the leaders in AI. You're advising companies, pretty often. What are some of the trends right now you're seeing in AI that you're most excited about, and how do you think that those are going to affect how companies operate and build today?
The trends in AI, I would have said, it's funny, like going into the year, I would have been like, oh, let's talk about like agents and agentic workflow. And I would have talked about web search built into AI, things like Perplexity, what it's doing, kind of some of the moves that AI overviews on Google, and then of course built-in ChatGPT search. So agents, search, I would have mentioned those things. Today, it's right now the number one thing to understand is like the power of these reasoning models. And when obviously DeepSeek was a big moment because they shocked the world about how much they did or didn't spend training their models and on inference. But the other thing they did is they really highlighted the power of these reasoning models. They had built a reasoning model that was competitive with the likes of ChatGPT o1, for example. And the truth is the reasoning models are the story, the trend. The reasoning model, I mean, Jensen Huang had his keynote at his big conference yesterday. And if you want to see like the number one trend, it's deep research. The word deep research is a little bit of a misnomer because Gemini from Google has a deep research product. Grok has a deep research product, which I think they call deep search. And OpenAI has a deep research product called deep research. OpenAI's deep research product is just incredible. And it's not just because it does research for you, which it does. It can analyze documents. It can reason. It can think through things. And when you start to get into understanding the power of the reasoning models, deep research being one of them, and what Google's doing in this area, what Anthropic with Claude is doing in this area, what Grok is doing, and what OpenAI is doing, it's all you'd want to talk about with your clients if you're us, right? Because it's like, oh my God, they're so much smarter, they're so much more capable, and so all these other trends matter, but they're actually all kind of converging. Like the word agentic just means like, oh, can you give the AI like a task to do, and it comes back and it does it. Well, it used to be you just chatted with, but now you can actually give it a project to go do. You can actually give it things to go do on the internet, like go book flights for you and stuff like that. So but they're all kind of coming together, Ben. So the thing I'd say is, if you really get into the space and you start paying attention, you realize like, well, agentic, the idea of an agent that can do things for you, the idea of web search, and the idea of reasoning models, like as they come together, you just get this really powerful AI that can do the things I just started saying to you, which is like solve your problems, augment your workflow, automate your workflow, like, and all of that just sort of lifts the tide of like the ability of this stuff to really permeate business results. And so so those are the trends that I'd mentioned.
Just the last question that I have, like, what is your kind of future trajectory here? Like, what are some of your goals right now that you want to accomplish? Is it just signing up, signing up more companies, getting advisory with these companies? Is it just kind of, you want to test new different ways AI could be implemented in some of these businesses? Like, what's your big picture vision for Forum3 and just, in general at this point?
We're super excited to do both of those things, sign up more clients and really help CEOs and executives really of mid-size to large consumer companies in particular, but we also have B2B clients. So we want to sign up more clients. We want to help them really tackle both the opportunity or business problem that they're facing using AI. And at the same time, we started playing around with what was an internal project in our lab that may become a product in the financial services sector. And so those are sort of the key initiatives that Forum3.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys taking the time and doing this. I think it's great that, people and companies can have someone they can turn to when it comes to AI and AI strategy. And, it's not like everybody just has someone on hand that could just come out there and figure all this stuff out. So it's great that you guys are doing that. And I'm definitely excited to see how you're going to help these companies be AI forward and what's next. Thanks for taking the time.